Lily,
Hi.
how are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you would tell me a little bit more about yourself and why you want to be a PA.
Okay. Well, right now I'm a teacher on the west side of Chicago. I teach high school chemistry and physics, and I really love what I do, and I love the kids that I work with. But I've always known that I wanted to go into medicine. I thought for a long time I was going to be in the capacity of like being a PT or working in sports medicine. But after working with some colleagues in college that sort of steered me the other way, I realized that being a PA was actually one of the best fits for me in terms of how much time I want to go back to school for, how soon I could actually start helping people, the type of collaborative work that I'm used to doing and think I'm actually really successful at. Um, and also just the amount of time that I get to spend with people, because building relationships has been one of the most important parts of the job that I do right now. And even though it's an education as opposed to medicine, I really think that you become more effective as a person, whether you're a teacher or a PA, the more you have a relationship with other people. And I just know that being an MD or working in another capacity, you don't have the luxury of spending all that time with a patient. And sometimes you don't get to form the relationship that I think is really important to me to do as a provider. So for reasons like that, I am excited to make a transition out of education and into medicine and to fill a role as a PA.
hmm Awesome, that's great. So for feedback, uh,
Mhm.
I think you just really did an excellent job on that. Just as a quick thing, you might introduce yourself if that hasn't happened in the interview yet, just in case. Um, the other thing is is everything okay?
Sorry, yeah, I'm just typing.
Oh, okay. Oh, sure. Okay. I
Or
thought
should I not? Should I just like,
Oh, no,
I'll
totally.
just wait.
No. Do whatever you got to do. I just thought maybe the call had cut out.
Oh, no, no, sorry.
Seriously, do whatever you got to do. I was taking notes, so type away.
Okay.
Whatever's going to help you. Yeah. So building relationships, I think, was an awesome thing that you brought into, and I loved how you connected it. Like you connected it between the PA profession and the education profession that you work in. I think putting the focus on that makes it very understandable why you would want to be a PA.
Hmm.
If I were your interviewer and I was going to follow up with you, I would probably ask why you went into education first,
Hmm.
and just talk, find out your thoughts on that.
Hmm.
Which you're welcome to tell me if you want to. Otherwise, we can move into the next question.
No, sure. I joined education out of college because I joined Teach for America, which is an AmeriCorps program that places people in areas of high need for a 2-year commitment. And they're usually people like me that have no experience in education. So it's really a wild ride that a lot of people leave after 2 years because that's when you're technically done. And I thought I was going to be one of those people, and I'm here 4 years later, still teaching the same kids at the same school, the same subject, because I really fell in love with doing it. And I knew I was eventually going to leave and it wasn't going to be my career path. But I've learned so much, and I've just really grown as a person. It's like thinking back, it was only 4 years ago, but like I was just a completely different person, even if my goals were very similar. The way I thought I was going to approach it, um, and the things that I thought I was good at and needed to get better at, they're just completely different now. And I just have a very different set of skills that I think will actually translate into medicine, whereas before it was just sort of more of a goal or a hope. Now I think it's real.
That's awesome. Such a good answer. Yeah, I think it's a gorgeous answer actually. So my prior job was working with Education Pioneers. I don't know if you're familiar with that organization, but
Oh, no.
we hire a lot of people from Teacher America. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, anyway, I'm pretty familiar with that. But I
Oh,
think
nice.
it's awesome work, and the way you described it is amazing. You could reinforce what I'm assuming is probably the case is that you fell in love with the work, you fell in love with working with those kids too.
Yeah.
You didn't say that outright, but I could tell from the way you were talking. But you might
Yeah.
just mention that. And that just is going to just going to emphasize the fact that you're a good relationship builder, and that's going to only help you in PA school. It's going to help you as a PA. So yeah,
Hmm. Thanks.
yeah. Um, and I love that you work on the west side of Chicago because Chicago kids need all they can get.
Yeah, I work in West Garfield Park.
Really,
So,
I have
yeah.
been there for a while. It's intense. It's cool.
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, awesome. I'm not sure if I told you that I think I forgot to outline the rest of the call for you. So we're gonna split this into two sections. The first one is that introductory section. The second part will just be a series of questions, and we're gonna limit the time of your answer to 1 minute just to give you
Oh,
time
okay.
for that.
I guess
So go ahead.
I don't really know what 1 minute feels like, so I guess I'll just try to.
Yeah, I'll
I don't know.
get close. I'll hold up a hand so you know to.
Oh, okay, cool.
You don't have to just stop though. You can finish.
Okay.
Sometimes group interview formats do that where you go around, everybody gets a question in a minute.
Yeah, I was reading about that. That seems stressful.
I know, yeah. So that's why I
I
included.
want other people to be there.
I thought it would be good in case that did happen for you to have a little bit of practice doing that. So
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, thanks. That's a good idea.
okay, cool. After that, we'll just move into regular questions and you can answer for as long as you want.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. I'm gonna start with a question nobody likes anyway, so you only have to talk about it for 1 minute.
Okay.
What are your weaknesses, or one of your weaknesses?
Just one. No, I thought a lot about this because I think in my work, a lot of the work we do is around reflection and around thinking back, even on a day-to-day basis, like what went well, what could have gotten better. And I think at a certain point, you have to look at that in a larger scale about like, what about me? What do I do well? What do I not do so well? And I think in terms of like working with other people, I love being in a position of leadership. I love delegating and sort of helping to form a plan and execute it and being responsible for a lot of things at once. And I think I notice it more because I work in the Midwest, but like I'm very much like, okay, let's do this and let's do this and let's do this and let's do it this way. And what's the most effective thing to do? In the Midwest, they're just like not in the same rush as I'm in for one thing, but I just think it's a different style of leadership for different people. And one thing you learn about just working with all sorts of people is you just don't always mesh in the way that you would do things. And I think that's just part of learning how to be a better leader. So for me, that's really something that I want to work on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. I think that's a great thing to note about yourself, and knowing that you have, if you could come up with like a couple sentences to add about how you recognize it when that happens and what you do to kind of scale
Mm-hmm.
that. Good. If it happened to you before where you've found yourself in that situation and you realize you need to pull back, maybe have an example in mind if they ask you any questions about that. I think that's a really strong answer though, because it shows it's showing a positive while it's talking about a real weakness, which is a good thing. So yeah, I think it's great.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's hard to like think about how to like kind of explain it in the right way without seeming like I'm just saying that I like step on toes.
Yeah,
I really
no,
do notice it more like in the like cultural setting, but I just think, I mean, that's important too. Not everyone's going to be from the East Coast when I go to school there too. So
true.
it's an
Yeah,
awareness.
yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think whether it's good to bring up that part about the Midwest or not. I guess
Yeah.
it probably doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know what? I think maybe avoid that and just say, different styles. Just focus on different styles, and that way, just in case someone would take that the wrong way, you don't have to even worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anytime you're ready, we can.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good.
Tell me what your least favorite class in college was.
Calculus. Definitely calculus. That was just, I talk about it a little bit on my application too. I think there's kind of like, it's almost like a stigma where people assume like if you have the science brain, you also have a math brain, like they're just one and the same. And I've just never really fit into that category. Even in high school, like algebra 2 was my nemesis. I remember that clearly. And then in college, I knew I had to take calculus 1 and 2, even though I was a biology major, and I put it off for a long time and eventually took it. And I really was not successful at it at first. It's my only D on my college transcript, and it embarrasses me in a lot of ways. But I learned from that, and I had to take Calc 2. I got a tutor before the class even started. I worked with him daily, and in the end, I got a C, which is like really not that impressive at all. But for me, math was like a constant area of anxiety. It was something that like I just wasn't used to struggling at something that was supposed to be so similar to the thing that I'm good at. So that was my least favorite class, but I like to think that I got through it.
Well done. That was an awesome answer.
Thanks.
I love it. There are a couple things that you're doing that I just think are really great. You seem completely yourself. I don't feel like you are selling me a load of anything. Like you're just being who you are, which I love. I think it's just like you seem very down to earth. You're very open. Like you're willing to talk about things that are maybe not that pleasant. Maybe aren't that worth bragging about. Sorry. But the way you talk about them is like, I don't know. There's something about the manner that you have, the way you're presenting it, that shows that you're not going to let something be a hindrance to you. So like, yes, you got a D. It was embarrassing. It sucks. But then you worked really super hard and you got a C, and yeah, it's not that much better, but hey, it was great and you did it. It's behind you. And I feel like that tone that you have, the way you're saying sort of like I did it. It's behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can move on. Like it kind of shows a little bit about your personality in the same way as maybe that leadership style you're talking about. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's showing a lot of like, you're going to have a lot of initiative. You're going to have a lot of drive.
Mm-hmm.
It's revealing in a way. And I think you're doing, it's a nice thing. So you're basically, what I'm trying to say is that you're letting your personality come through very well and you seem very genuine.
Thanks. Okay, good.
Yeah. Which
That's
is
fine, 'cause I'm like nervous, but that's good. Thanks.
no, you're doing great. There's no wrong answer to that question anyway, but one thing that is important to note is that really that question is just gauging whether you tend to be positive or negative in your answers, and if you blame other people for something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
You had 0 of that in your answer, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we can move into just the regular, like however long you want questions.
Oh, okay, yeah. A minute is fast.
Yeah, I know it is fast. There's a push right now to change the title of the profession from physician assistant to physician associate. What are your thoughts on
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I've been doing some research just on the history of PAs in general, and at first I was startled that like there's been like all these little changes, like it was physician's assistant, and I can see why that connotation got changed pretty quickly. That seems like almost not derogatory, but like a different kind of relationship that I really envision having with the physician that I work with. But I do, I've gotten feedback from people like when I was first talking about becoming a PA, people saying like the word assistant being in the name like is somehow indicative of like a plateau for me in terms of professional, ladder climbing or something. And I think at first maybe I thought that too, and since I've sort of learned about the way that dynamic works, it doesn't bother me at all. But I think because there is so much that a PA does with respect to what a doctor does, I mean, they can do like 85% of the things that an MD can do in terms of, things in the exam room, ordering scripts or labs or what have you. It does make sense to sort of have the name reflect the even leadership between the two positions. I think even though I understand the term assistant to not mean a negative thing, from outsiders looking in, I think it just presents a little bit more of a united front to have that language in there.
that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So I think incorporating some of the stuff you're talking about with the history of the profession is good, and it shows that you're really paying attention to those things and educating yourself. I think if I were you, I would add a little bit more about how the name might affect the patient and the stability of the profession.
Yeah.
So if people are really just starting to understand what PAs do and in that anyway. So, some of the arguments against changing the name are like, well, if we change the name, does that destabilize it? Do people start saying like, well, what, I thought you guys were physicians. But on the other hand, it does make it, maybe makes it more clear to patients what your role is, so that you don't seem like an assistant. You do seem like a leadership role.
Yeah, I've never thought about that question before, but that's a good point. My dad's a family doc, and he is really one of the people that has encouraged me to look into PA school. Like he says going to med school is overrated, which I think he really has a good point. And he talks about referring to them as like mid-level practitioners and giving them a more like, again, like a name that reflects like the dynamic that actually exists, and like getting away from this assistant connotation. So that does make a lot of sense. But I see what you're saying about like when there's a name change, like people can't always keep up, and it can hurt it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the important thing on that too is just to know that like people on the committee are probably going to have different opinions on it.
Yeah.
It probably isn't really that important which side you take. It's just being able to explain it. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
awesome. What would you do if a patient refused to be seen by you because you were a PA and not a physician?
I would, well, I think if there's an opportunity to speak with the patient, then that's always positive for me. I think not in a confrontational way at all, but for me going forward, it's just, I think that any feedback is good feedback. It's nice to know whether or not I'm going to change the patient's mind. It's just nice to know like where they're coming from in that sense. You know, is it something like simple as the word assistant being in my title that makes them feel not comfortable being treated by me? Or have they had a negative experience with a PA before? Or do they really just love this doctor? You know, it's just, if there's the opportunity for growth in any way, then I think I like to take advantage of that opportunity. But again, a lot of people, if they're in a situation where they don't want to see you in a clinical setting, they might not want to have the conversation with you anyways. And at a certain point, you just have to accept that and maybe try to reflect on your own. But again, if you can have the conversation, I'd always rather do that than not.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's great. Emphasizing that communication really, it lends itself to reinforcing the idea that you're a relationship builder, which is incredibly helpful for this profession. One thing you might talk about is if you have to offer to help them reschedule with a physician, maybe mention some of the drawbacks like increased wait, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you can give the patient the big picture as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall, I think that you're spot on. The really important part of that is the respect for the patient's preferences. So
Mm-hmm.
and you did that perfectly well. So that's great. What patient population did you least like working with while you were accruing your patient care hours?
I think that because I have such an appreciation, or have always sort of had an appreciation for serving people who need it more, it's honestly harder for me, or not as exciting for me, to treat people that I think will be successful or be okay no matter what. It's the same way with teaching. Like, I think about if I went and I taught at a school that had kids that looked like me with backgrounds like me, like, would I find that it was as rewarding? And I don't think I would. You know, they would be successful no matter what, and they don't need me to be there to do that. And the same thing with patients. Like, not everyone has the compassion and the patience and just the mindset to help people who are traditionally underserved. So for me, sort of the flip-flop, I find it less gratifying to work with people who have a certain amount of privilege, especially when they're not aware of it, you know. And maybe that's ironic, because for a long time I was like that. You know, I have a certain amount of privilege just because I'm white or what have you. But now that I'm so aware of it, it's like I can't ignore the fact that, like, there are certain values to me that make a big difference in terms of the population that I serve.
Mm-hmm. Great. I think that's a really awesome answer. It aligns perfect. I really understand it coming from your education background and what you've told me. I think you didn't sound negative at all toward people with privilege, I guess is probably the best way of saying it. If you are pressed, they might say, well, what do you do when you're in a situation where you have to care for those people? How do you, treat them equally to others? So you might just kind of reflect on that and think about how you would address that if they ask. I think you're spot on with that. Does the program that you're applying to, do they have a focus on underserved population?
They, not specifically, but they do have like certain programs They have one program that's really cool that's with Harvard where they have like some clinics, these like collaborative clinics, and one of them I was reading about is in Chelsea. It's in this one neighborhood where they like specifically serve people who have recently been released from jail, and other like immigrants and refugees, which is not something that I've done before, but that's kind of like more of the demographic that I see myself serving if I have a choice. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. So you could mention that
Mhm.
as part of your answer there, just saying, this is part of the reason I applied, just to make them show them that that part of their program, I guess.
Yeah.
What I was going to say was just make them feel special. It's probably not the best way of putting it. You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about a time when you had to work with a supervisor that you disagreed with?
Um,
Sorry, my babies are trying to open the door. Sorry, keep going.
That's a hard one. Well, actually, no, it's not. Because my first year teaching, when I started the school that I'm still at, I had a principal who, like on paper, I can see why they hired her. She was so fantastic. She had all this experience and spoke with confidence and was really a woman that I thought I would emulate at first. But sort of as we all got to work with her, it became clear that she sort of led through fear in a lot of ways and really intimidated people that worked beneath her and also students too. And the thing was, like, I didn't know any better. Like, this was my first job out of college, and I didn't know that you can work for people or be supervised by people that don't necessarily thrive on your being afraid of them or you're being too scared to make a mistake. So with that, I mean, I took a lot of her advice and I tried to implement what I could, but I also think I really struggled with how to also sort of walk on eggshells around a person that I really wanted to respect in a lot of ways. So for me, it came down to relying on the people that I worked with, the people that I knew were also struggling in a similar situation. It's funny the way that like a common enemy kind of creates a stronger bond between other people. And I think we all became closer as a staff that year because we struggled with being led by someone who really was not a good leader. And ultimately, you sort of felt validated by the end of the year when she was fired in the third quarter. And so I was like, I'm not crazy. This isn't actually normal. But in certain situations, you do have to just respect the person for the position that they're in and try to assume that they're coming from a place of best intent, assume that they actually do really want you to get better. And if all else fails, lean on the people that are beside you that you can count on.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good answer. It's super honest. And I think it's probably a difficult one to balance being honest and not super negative about
Yeah.
it. But I think you did a good job with it, especially talking about relying on the people around you and bringing in the fact that it was your first job so that that also helps for you to be able to be, I think, a little bit more honest and say like, it's just easier to be, I think, you can say something more negative because you were observing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also your first position, so you weren't really sure if what you were observing was accurate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that makes it seem a lot more not judgmental, but just like what's happening. It's more
Data context, yeah.
Exactly. I think also the way you ended that answer is really strong with giving the person the benefit of the doubt, saying that ultimately you have to trust that they really do want you to succeed because it's their success.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the best way you could really answer that question. And talking about the building up of the rest of your team is a great thing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you tell me what you think your biggest challenge in PA school will be?
Um, um, I think that my biggest challenge, I mean, I won't say that like the coursework and everything doesn't intimidate me. I mean, there's a reason that it's this selective, and there's a reason why, the first time I went through this process, I wasn't successful. I'm competing with people that are truly super intelligent and qualified, and that I would be really proud to work next to. So yeah, it makes me sort of bewildered to think that like here I am now, and in 2 years I'll be able to walk into an exam room, have a patient tell me what's wrong, and then like tell them how to fix it. That's wild to think about for me, because right now like my world is so much different than that. But I think that with the program and the way it's designed in this like team-led collaborative manner of teaching, which is something that I'm already, really comfortable with, that's the way that I'm going to get through the struggle of like having to learn a lot of things in a little bit of time and become really good at it. I think that the impact program that like really is designed around interdisciplinary education and like learning how to work not only with the other PAs but also with the nurses and the docs and the MAs and the patient, like that can only really strengthen how good you are in the exam room, but also the way that you treat things that maybe you didn't understand at first glance. It allows you to be comfortable asking for help, which is what I'm not afraid to do.
Awesome. That's great. It's another good example of just how genuine you come across. I mean, I just feel like you're really, really excellent at being honest and being yourself. And you seem very comfortable and very natural, which is great. I think it's exactly what you need.
I was nervous to like say that like the classwork is intimidating to me, because like I feel like my GPA is not as high as everyone else's, and I'm afraid that like I have to, like explain the D on my transcript and stuff like that. So I didn't know if it would work against me to be like, yeah, and the classes scare me, but that's the truth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to answer honestly, I think, because otherwise,
It's
what's the
obvious if you know, I feel like.
I think just there was something in your answer that you said that made me feel good about it. It was, I can't remember how you phrased it, but it was very decisive in terms of like, I will get through it. So you spoke in a way that was like you weren't doubting your ability to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's excellent. You might just throw in some things about classes that you did excel in. I mean, I'm assuming there were definitely classes that you were great in that you've done well in, and they already know your GPA, right? So you've already got the internet.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Um, you could even, I'm kind of a big advocate for just being honest about it and saying, I'm hesitant to say that I am intimidated by the course, but I think it would, I feel like I need to be honest and say, this is a huge project to undergo, but I'm very enthusiastic about it. I've been a good student in the past and I know I can do it. You could kind of be honest like that if you felt like you needed to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad answer, but I do see what you're saying. I don't know. I don't feel like it's a problem, but I would hate to tell you that it's fine and then it not be fine with other people. You know what I mean? I really respect and respond to honesty like that, but
Yeah. I guess I don't really know what my other answer would be. I thought about like I don't know, supporting myself financially and like being in school, like that's real, but that's not really like practical for the interview.
yeah. Do you think it'll be a difficult thing for you to move or go back to school full time, after being in the workforce for a while, those kind of things? And they may not be like your ultimate challenge, but
Yeah, maybe moving. I mean, like leaving my school, leaving my kids.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You could, so if you choose that instead, it's a little bit of a safer answer, but it's probably still true.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
It'll come across the same way, I mean, as genuine. You could, some tips for like talking about how you're going to acclimate to the environment would just be trying to build relationships with your classmates and with your instructors, trying to be a part of the school, be involved in it rather than just an observer or somebody who's there but not really dedicated and really inserting yourself into it. And then talking about the community and how you might be able to be involved in the community, finding your own place like coffee shop or your own places that are special to you and that'll make you feel at home. So some thoughts on how to, if you decide to go a different way with it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
A little bit of a safer route, I think. I really like the honesty in your answers though. So
yeah, I guess hopefully I'll be able to sort of play it by ear once I am in front of the interviewers.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I don't know. Maybe they won't ask me.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so for the next question, if you want to answer it with the program that you're interviewing with in mind, tell me why you feel that program is the right fit for you and you're the right fit for the program.
I feel that this program is really made for me and like will allow me to be successful because it has such a focus on team-based learning. It is really designed around discussion and application of knowledge and critical thinking. I mean, these are all things that like I've strived to have in my own classroom for years, and I know how difficult it is to accomplish, but I also know how successful that can be for students. I mean, I can say firsthand how like the idea of flipping the classroom and having the students do a lot of the lifting and the learning ahead of time and during class, as opposed to like assigning all this homework and things to do when there's no one there to collaborate with. I mean, it makes a big difference in terms of actual comprehension and the longevity of that knowledge. You know, you're not just memorizing it for a test, you actually understand it, can apply it, and see the application of it in real world situations. So for me, that makes the most sense, and I really wouldn't want to learn how to do this any other way.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's fantastic. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, I think that being that specific is a nice thing. It's very succinct and it shows what's really important to you. If there are other things that if you get the sense that you should be talking more, like if they want a broader answer, talk about the things that they brag about themselves, the things that they're excited about, talk about how you're excited about being a part of them too. But I think that's great.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so this is a crappy question. I hate asking it, but I think it's an important one. So they ask, if you were not accepted into our program, what do you think the reason would be?
I think it would be because perhaps on paper academically, I'm not as competitive as I am with some other applicants that perhaps studied harder or were more passionate in undergrad and had more direction than I did. I think I'm kind of a late bloomer when it comes to that, but all I've done since I've graduated from college was thought about breaking into medicine, how I'll do it, how I can be a better student. I mean, even though I'm not a student now, I'm in the classroom every single day of my life, and I teach kids how to study better, and I teach kids the emphasis on having goals and on having forethought and chasing after things that maybe they don't think are possible for them. So on paper, academically, my past doesn't really speak to the knowledge that I have now and the drive that I think I'm capable of showing. But if I weren't accepted, it would probably be for an objective reason like that.
Mm-hmm. Such a fantastic answer, Lily. You have to follow up with me and tell me when you get in, because basically I just can't imagine that you're not going to. I think you're a great candidate for this.
Thanks so much.
These answers are so great. There's nothing that I could tell you to improve that. It's perfect. It was poetic almost with being in the classroom every day and motivating the kids. I think it's great.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Sometimes I feel like I steer away from the question just to like say other stuff, but I think that's the stuff that they want to hear anyways, even if that's not really what they're asking.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Like in that question, I wasn't just saying why. I was also like bragging about all these things I do every day, and like how I would be better. Or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But, no, I mean, it all made sense to me. Like explaining, okay, maybe my grades don't stack up, but here's how I've been focusing on grades basically and academic performance for years, even if it's not your own. So to me, it made perfect sense.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we have time for one last question.
Okay.
So if you would, tell me about a time that you surprised yourself.
Um, I think I really surprised myself when I was accepted into Teach for America. I kind of entered the process on a whim because I wasn't really ready to make the decision about graduate school, and I didn't know what my next step was going to be after college. And I also didn't realize how passionate I was going to be about serving people who were less privileged and marginalized from the standpoint of being a science teacher. And it was really through the very short application process and that I very quickly realized that that's something I'm actually really passionate about. And it even became clear to me as I was in the interview and I was talking about it, I was sort of being asked these provocative questions that the answers that I was giving surprised me. I mean, they were completely genuine, but I didn't even realize the way I felt about some of these issues until they were presented right in front of me. So I was surprised that I had this sort of fervor towards something that I didn't really think about as much as I do now. And when I got in, I was just as surprised that they recognized it in me, but I'm very grateful for it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great job. Definitely no right or wrong answer to that one. So yeah, no, it was really nice. And I do love the fact that it ties into your kind of your mission for working in healthcare too. It just reinforces that. So that's all the questions I have. Do you have any questions for me about this process that we just went through, or do you want to run by me the questions that you might ask in your interview? Whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Well, I mean, I've really just been Googling stuff because I don't know, I think of certain things, but I don't really want to just ask any old question, you know. I think it should be a little bit thoughtful. So some things that I was looking at were um, asking them like what sets your program apart from others.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I was thinking that question before I really kind of knew the answer to for myself. So I don't know if it's as necessary or if they feel like put on the spot by that. I don't know. Do you find that your graduates are more likely to work in a particular field? Like just seeing the trajectory that people go on from this program.
Mm-hmm.
Or like what relationships do you have with clinical rotation sites?
Mm-hmm. I like that too. I think if you ask the one about working in a particular field, the graduates, be prepared to answer that for yourself in case they follow up with you and want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think your first question, it might put them on the spot. It also might be a little, well, I mean, you know the program so well that it also might seem like an odd question just because
Like you don't know it or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it'll put them on the spot because I'm sure people ask it, but
Yeah.
you might be able to. There's probably a better question.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, those were like my only two that I was like, okay, that's real. I actually wondered that.
Yeah. Stick with the ones that are real for you because everything else about this interview has definitely been like you being very genuine. So, yeah,
Cool.
That's the strongest part of your interview. You come across as just like 100% who you are.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, I felt really good about that. I mean, I'm nervous, but I really just want to like get there and do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're gonna do well. I can tell. One quick thing that I did notice when you were talking, a lot of times you aren't looking at the person. It could just be because of the video thing too. Like it's hard to make eye contact with a video screen. But I did notice that a lot. So it's totally fine to do that when you're collecting your thoughts, but just like if you catch yourself, remember to focus back in.
Yeah. No, that's like my thinking phase, I think. But
yeah. That's all right. Yeah, so I think you're in really good shape, and I am really excited. I hope you will follow up with me and let me know how it goes because I'll be very curious.
Awesome. Yeah, I will let you know.
Good.
This has been really fantastic and worth it for sure. So
glad.
I'm really glad that I did this. Thanks so much for your help, Sarah.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know if you have any other questions in the meantime, or if a question trips you up tomorrow and you want to talk about like how you could answer it better next time or something like that. Just let me know. I'm happy to help.
Okay, that's great. All right, thanks so much. I know you have to go to your next thing, but I appreciate it.